much power. And it's, again, it's supporter groups and or fans. Do they, in fact, have...
I've always said this before. If you don't have a passionate fan base...
Yeah, so you go to GoRFX.
What's going on in the bullpen? Again, Whitecaps on 106.1 FM.
On today's Inside the Game, soccer news from around the United States, we'll talk about the top 5 U.S. men's national team moments of all time. And with the new stadium coming in 2028 in Chicago, can they become a top 5 soccer market? That and much more are coming up right now.
Welcome to Inside the Game on the National Soccer Network. Now, here are your hosts, Jonathan Turner and Nathan Wangler.
Good morning. It is Tuesday. It is episode number 145. It's Inside the Game. I'm Jonathan Turner. That's Nathan Wangler. I'm live here in our Shelby Township studios. Nathan is in Grand Rapids. And good morning to you, my friend.
Hello, how are you? Yes, there is a ton to cover on the soccer front. I'm doing okay, my man. I'm rolling this week. We're getting into crossover season, like I talked about. So I'm actually excited because I'm going to be back doing a lot of soccer games again here very shortly. I actually got one tomorrow, so I'm going to be able to actually kind of knock the dust off, if you will, because it's been a minute. I feel like I can't remember the last time I did a soccer match. I think I was doing the USL, if I'm not mistaken, it was the USL 2 game, Flint City's game, and the USLW game, the one Utah United. I believe that was the last game that I did, but that was on color. That wasn't on play-by-play, so I got to get back into the rhythm of it, but I'm excited. I'm going to have plenty of opportunities to do that here in the coming weeks, including tomorrow. Cornerstone University opens their season up, so I'll be doing some NAIA action, and yeah, just getting back into the flow of everything, but I'm excited.
I am as well. We are joined once again by our in-studio producer, Mr. Nathan Turner. Good morning,
Yeah.
Nathan. How are you?
Good.
Good. How was yesterday?
Give us
How
a
was
fist
your
pump.
first go with being producer here for?
Kind of easy. Fun.
Kind of easy?
Yeah.
Fun?
wasn't There.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of easy. Dealing with your dad is
I feel like
kind
we're
of
not
easy.
challenging our producers
That's
enough then, huh?
it's
Nah,
kind of easy, you know.
I don't know.
Hey,
the way he
yeah,
said it,
hey.
though, he's like, how I said this is mid.
Hey, is it mid?
Yeah.
Hey, Nathan, I got to tell you, though, he calls me Nathan, and that throws me off guard. I think my mother's the only other person in my life that calls me Nathan, but because it's your name, it just rolls off the tongue.
Yeah.
So I always feel like I'm in trouble anytime he says my name, either on the podcast or in person.
Nathan.
He says Nathan. I think I did something wrong. Nathan? You pick up the basement?
Well,
Yeah, got it.
Well, great job there, Nathan. Yesterday, we look forward to helping us again here today. We'll get ready to dive into this show here. We have a great show lined up. We'll dive into some things that are going around the country in regards to soccer. The Son Huang signing, right? We talk about that. That's what we're going to discuss here a little bit. Where does that rank in regards to all the signings that we've seen across the MLS over the years? We'll take a look at that this morning. Nate and I will discuss our top
Nathan,
5
right?
U.S. men's national team moments in history, and they're good. Granted, a couple of them we weren't around or in existence yet. Well, at least I know Nate wasn't. I was for
Not
the
quite.
bulk of them. After that, we'll dive into Chicago Fire are building a new stadium here. It's set to open in the spring of 28. We'll dive into that a little bit, but we'll also talk about, because something Taylor Twellman said on TikTok here in a short either it was yesterday or a couple days ago, was talking about how they could become a top 5 market. We'll discuss that comment and more here throughout the show today. We did celebrate my wife's birthday last night. Went to a restaurant called Maggiano's last night. It's an Italian restaurant. I think it actually originally founded, in Chicago, if I'm not mistaken. But here's what I'm going to tell you. Okay, I don't care your feelings about how much food costs nowadays, right? I don't give a shit about that. Food is expensive. Okay, I mean I eat quite a bit out and about, and it's expensive. It's gone expensive, and not because my kids are older either. Because I mean we can eat, and I'll give a perfect example. We'll eat at Texas Roadhouse. Texas Roadhouse. If I don't get an appetizer for the table for our family, we typically walk out of there for about $140. $140. Okay, that includes that includes my wife gets a drink, we get appetizers, $140. That includes tip, that's everything. Okay, out the door, $140.
Yeah.
Okay. Last night, for my wife's birthday, it was $200 including tip, $200. Okay. Now,
Okay.
the food has changed at Maggiano's, so not only
Right.
is the food different, it's coming out in smaller portions. They're charging you more. And the service was terrible. Okay?
Mm.
And I haven't been there in over a year. My issue right now is not that I have to pay more for something. I am willing to pay more money for something if I believe there's a value to it. When I walk into Maggiano's and all the servers are wearing, what pressed shirts, they got the pressed aprons and they got the bow tie or tie they're wearing. I mean, they look sharp. Don't walk up to my table as a server and treat me like I'd be treated if I was walking in McDonald's. You know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of stuff that if you're talking about grinding my gears, like, that's it, right? Like, don't do that. You know what I mean?
I'm a proud McDonald's alum, man. I wouldn't have treated you that way. I'm just letting you know.
That, again, you walk into Ed DeBevick's in Chicago, you're going to get yelled at, okay? You're going to get yelled at. They're going to call you some names,
Is it still open?
Yeah, I think it is. I think.
Yeah.
But again,
okay.
I don't know.
All right.
But my whole point, though, is that I don't have a problem paying for more, but you have to meet the expectation, the standard in which you are setting when you walk in the door. If I go to a steakhouse and I pay $50 for a steak, I expect a $50 steak to be edible.
Yeah.
And I always say this. I will forego great service or good service for great food. If the food is good, I'm coming back. Even if you treated me like shit, I'm coming back because the food's good. But if the service is terrible and the food is just okay, I'm not coming back. I am not going to come back. And so last night, Maggiano's, nuh-uh. And, you would name dropping. No, they just didn't do a good job. And now, was that an isolated incident? We've been there many times in the past. It was our first time back. I'm not going to be going there for a while.
Might be.
So.
Yeah. For the price. Yeah, for the price. Part of the reason why you pay that number is because of the experience and the environment. That's why places like Ruth's Chris charge you an arm and a leg just to walk in there, or the Chop House, or any of those other places. You walk in.
Ruth's Chris is expensive, but they deliver on the promise.
They're great. No, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. They show up. They do all the little things. Like, it's almost over the top how attentive they are. That's why I'm not used to it. I walk in there as a peasant, and I'm not used to that level of treatment. That, hey, we cater to you. So, but that's why you pay the big bucks. That's why you do it. That's what I got as opposed to a raise for the longest time.
And obviously, like I said, it was my wife's birthday, so we had a chance to do that last. I got some ice cream, which was great. But coming up next, we're going to dive into some what's going on right now in soccer. While there's food happening all across this country, soccer is as well. We'll dive into that here on the other side of the break. It's episode number 145 here on Inside the Game. We're back after this.
Flint City Bucks are Michigan's top soccer franchise with 4 national championships, 9 conference titles, and 15 Great Lakes Division titles. They have produced 107 players for Major League Soccer, and they focus on attracting top talent and shaping soccer's future. Michigan Bucks Academy joins MLS Next new competition tier starting in September of 2025. This offers elevated levels of play and flexibility for high school participation. The Academy will provide premier development, high-performance training, and exposure to scouts through regional tournaments and MLS Next events. For more information on tryouts, training programs, and key updates as we prepare for our first season in MLS Next new tier, visit MichiganBucksAcademy.com.
Welcome back here into Inside the Game. John Turner alongside Nate Wangler. Episode number 145 here on this Tuesday morning. And we're going to dive into some kind of rapid fire here real quick. Nothing here is going to, I mean, we have a graphic, but it's nothing specific to this. But Bay FC smashes an NWSL attendance record. The San Francisco-based Bay FC drew 40,091 fans to Oracle Park for their match against the Washington Spirit on August 24th. All right, so just 2 days ago, setting a new NWSL attendance record. It also became the second highest attendance in ever in U.S. Women's professional sports. So that tells you something right there. The match ended in a 3-2 win for the Spirit with goals from Rachel Kunanji and Kelly Hubley. Bay FC's next game is on September the 6th. But again, 41,000 fans almost showing up to that game in San Francisco. A world record transfer. Ovali to Orlando Pride. Mexican international midfielder Elizabeth Jacqueline, the Magician Ovale, has joined the Orlando Pride from Tigres for a world record transfer fee of $1.5 million. At 25, Ovali is Tigres' all-time scorer and will join the Pride through the 2027 season with an option for 2028. The team currently sits third in the NWSL. And so that's a big one right there. U.S. Women's National Team has announced an October friendly against New Zealand, so that's coming up here in October. This is an interesting one. Purina has officially partnered with U.S. Soccer in first ever pet care sponsorship. Now, Purina is both, I believe, for both cats and dogs. I don't think it's just for dogs and or cats, but I think it's for both. But the official pet care partner of U.S. Soccer is a partnership running through 2030. The collaboration will feature pet-friendly stadium experiences, which is interesting, adoption events, and custom content, aiming to celebrate both soccer fans and their furry companions at the U.S. Soccer gears up for the 26th World Cup coming here next year. That's an interesting one there, Mr. Wing. It's like the Purina pet sponsorship. They're going to have pet-friendly environments at soccer stadiums around the United States. I'm looking forward to going to a game here in the near future as cats roam the concourses.
Heck yeah.
And chase the pigeons on the field. Let's hear it.
We can't wait for that game delay.
Huh?
Can't wait for that delay of game at whenever that comes about. That'll be a good one. That'll be an entertaining one. I'll chase them down. We're good.
Let's take a look here. So Lutz Pfannenstiel fired as St. Louis City's FC sporting director. St. Louis SC has relieved former German goalkeeper and sporting director Lutz, I believe it's Pfannenstiel, that's how I pronounce Steele, of his duties after 5 years. The decision came after disappointing results this season with the team near the bottom of the MLS standings. Pfannenstiel has been pivotal in the club's early development and its 2023 Western Conference title season. MLS dominance continues in League Cup. In 2025 League Cup, 4 MLS teams, Inter Miami, Orlando City, Seattle Sounders, and the LA Galaxy advanced to the semifinals, each defeating Liga MX components in the quarterfinals, which I know there's been now this concern because the League Cup was all about, obviously with Liga MX and getting those two teams to compete, those two leagues to compete against each other, and that's really what drew fans in. And now you've got 4 MLS teams who are fighting for a championship in this League Cup, and it's like in the middle of the season. So how much excitement are you going to have? This is going to be very similar to like that of the U.S. Open Cup, I'd imagine, at least on some level. But that is the soccer news this morning.
Mind if I add a few here?
You absolutely
Mind
can,
if I add a few here? All right, here we go. Second youngest player in the history of the Premier League. We're going to talk about this a little bit coming up on social. Arsenal's Max Doman made his debut the other day. He's an attacking midfielder, again, the second youngest player to ever represent, Arsenal after coming off as a substitute. 15 years old in 234 days during Saturday's 5-0 win over Leeds. They call him the schoolboy. He capped an eye-catching 26-minute cameo, ended up actually drawing a penalty, which wasn't converted by him, but he did end up drawing the penalty. Wayne Rooney, someone else that's been talking about how, Max Doman is the talk of the football world right now, made his Everton debut age 16 in 2002, was actually 5 days short of his 17th birthday, became the youngest goal scorer by registering a stunning late goal and a win over Arsenal, believe it or not. So now you have Max Doman joining Arsenal. He just had to play in the Premier League at that crazy. Is just at that age is just absolutely wild. That just doesn't happen. So exciting news around Max Doman. Also, who's who around the U.S. men's national team. Since we are talking U.S. men's national team, Josh Sargent has been on an absolute heater as of late to begin this season. 4 matches in this season so far with Norwich City. He scored in all 4 of those matches. Has Josh Sargent. His most recent goal came in the 85th minute on an impressive high-arching shot that sailed above the goalkeeper's head, cut Norwich's 2-goal deficit in half. 3 of his 4 goals in the EFL Championship matches, 1 in the EFL Cup. He is off to a roaring start right now, and it'll be interesting to see where he slots in to that U.S. men's national team. But there you go. I just wanted to add two to your news list. That's all. I just had a few for you. Also, Yunus Musa also had a good interview with ESPN. We could talk about that at another time. He broke down the entire Gold Cup drama, what the hope was coming up. His tone was making me feel like it was a Mauricio Pochettino decision. Sat down with ESPN the other day to talk about the Gold Cup dilemma, and he said that it was a coaching and administration decision. So, Jonathan Turner, I know we've talked about the starters themselves sitting out and maybe wanting a break, but maybe there's the other side of the discussion that maybe Mauricio Pochettino wanted to find out how deep this system is, what players he might be able to include when the World Cup comes around. I talked about this once upon a time with the other co-host who used to be on our show, and mentioned how this, in a lot of ways, the Gold Cup stretch felt like a tryout for a lot of players, felt like an opportunity for Mauricio Pochettino to see what he has. And you can say not much, but that's kind of the way that Yunus Musa was leaning. So there's that. Josh Sargent has been unconscious since the beginning of the season, and we're going to talk more in length about Max Doman, the second youngest player to ever play for Arsenal, 16 years old. Life is getting scary, Jonathan Turner, 15 years old, because this kid is a decade and a half younger than I am. You know, there used to be a time where I watched sports and I saw older players and I was like, wow, I want to be like them. Now I'm like, yeah, he's half my age. So that's fun.
Okay, so
Go ahead.
I firmly believe that the administrative decision came after a documentary aired. Because if that was the case, it would have been like publicized before, right? It's something about being.
You know how close to the vest they are about things.
Yeah, no,
you know how close to the vest they are.
Again, first things first. You and I both know that bad news is still good news for a place that's trying to get any type of publicity, right? So any type of drama is going to create eyeballs and viewership, and so absolutely. But the last thing that anyone needs right now in the United States is indecisiveness, and chaos when it comes to the U.S. men's national team, right? So yeah, if there's going to be these singular moments that don't necessarily define a team, they happen, right? A player gets in a DUI or something silly, something stupid that isn't. But to the actual whole team, you're going to sit here and tell me that this coach Pochettino decided. Before the Gold Cup and before Christian Pulisic and all the other 8 players who said they weren't going to play, you're telling me right now that he was like, okay, guys, you're going to all sit out. It's administratively, we're deciding that you're not going to play. And all these players decided to not say a single thing about that at all. Ever. During any of you have a documentary where they're bitching about players and yelling and all. Well, the coach told us to. Come on, man. I'm sorry, but that is the U.S. men's national team trying to save face when all they had left was crumbs on a plate. I'm sorry.
We know how finger pointing goes too with this group. I mean, we've seen it already. We've seen it in the drama that we've seen in the media. I mean, it's immediately, who do we point the finger at? We point the finger at this guy or that guy. He's the reason why this didn't happen. They're the reason why this didn't happen. And some of them honestly maybe needed a break. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe they were already leaning that way, but all I'm saying is it might be a little murkier than just straight up they didn't want to play. I feel like sometimes we take the pressure off the shoulders of Poach when maybe at the end of the day that's exactly what he wanted. Maybe he wanted to see what else they had in the can, because it's one thing to name a starting 11 for the United States. The issue that we have, as we already talked about on the show, is depth. We don't have depth, so we have to try to generate depth. It's one of the reasons why I mentioned when talking about Emma Hayes in particular. And I realize, again, the women's game is very different, but how many different new players she's introduced to the player pool. Like, we don't have the deepest player pool in the world, but now that you expand that out to all these other kids in the Gold Cup, maybe it makes it a little bit deeper, and maybe it gives you pause to think about who else might be involved in that process. All I know is, yeah, there's a lot of finger pointing going on. It just deepens the story when Yunus Musa talks to ESPN and makes it an administrative decision.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I think, again, I don't know why you're waiting until 3 months after the Gold Cup. I don't know why you would have been up there. Again, as the head coach, I've been a head coach. And the biggest challenge of being a head coach isn't so much what happens on the field. That's easy. It's all the stuff that happens away from the field. It is the distractions. It's the school. It's the parents. It's the players. It's their friends. It's the weather. I mean, it's everything. Everything else, which has nothing to do with soccer, is typically the hardest to deal with. And so I get it. I understand that there are complexities to, and there's a lot of moving pieces into all this, but you can't sit here and tell me that this was an administrative decision 2 months after the fact when you could have absolutely walked up to a podium at any point in time and said, hey, we made this decision. And again, whether we agree with it or not, at least we could all sit here and say and digest it and go, oh yeah, right now we're all going, well, Pulisic's a villain. And these other 7 players are like villains. Why would you want us to do that? I don't know. What would be the purpose of that? Again, unless they're sitting behind the scenes going, oh, we can do it. It's like conspiracy. Yes. No, that's not how I don't buy into that. I think that they're just trying to save face. They are just trying to save face. And while I think it's nice, was a day late and $1 short. You waited too long. This is after all the backlash that you got from the Paramount documentary with docuseries with Pulisic, where he's bashing the former U.S. men's national team players. Everyone's going, we got to figure that. Okay, well, I'll go ahead. Okay, sure, I'll go in there and do this. I'll just take one for the team, which you should have done like 6 months ago when they were announcing that they weren't going to play, and then that would have solved this problem. We would have been like, well, okay, well, at least now we know what's going on. Instead, we're trying to save face after the fact. I'm sorry, it's a bunch of BS.
Yeah, we're just not privy to those conversations. I just wish we were.
This is another fact. OJ did it.
Right. That is a fact. Yes, don't watch that documentary. It just makes you pissed off at the end of the night. They got a new one on Netflix.
We got to dive into this though. Hey, we talked about Son Heung-min and his signing right here recently. And the conversation has been and will always be when we bring in players who are coming over across the pond, whether that be European or otherwise, we take note of how impactful that is. And as of right now, where does Son Heung-min and his LAFC signing, where does that kind of like match up right now, or I would say in the history, where does it fall? Right? Here's the list of the players that we have signed over the years. All right there at the top. I think that there's nobody, even with Messi. David Beckham is the first player ever. He changed the MLS economics, the DP rule, yep. Right? And who was the beneficiary of that in 2023? Lionel Messi. Right? So while Lionel Messi is probably going to go down as one of the biggest and maybe the most impactful signings, if it weren't for David Beckham, he wouldn't have had that unbelievable signing, right? Zlatan, right? Ibrahimovic, right? 2018. I mean, 52 goals in 56 games, right? I mean, so unbelievable, right? This guy, right? And then you got right there at 4, record fee, Asian market, instant impact, right? Thierry Henry, Sebastian Javinko, all right, in Toronto, Carlos Vela, right? David Villa, right? I mean, a Drogba. I mean, Gareth Bale, Kaká, Luis Suarez. These are all great, great players, right? So he fits into there. Right now, I'd imagine that number 4. And again, reason why is how the impact is. The impact is he's going to have here on this league. He's not. I don't think he's a big time name either. I mean, I think of him as a player that was really, really good right over across the pond. Obviously, playing for Tottenham, right? I think it was Tottenham, right? Yeah, Tottenham. Yeah. I think it's great. But I think if you say the big names right now in that league, was he one of the biggest names? I think he was in the conversation, but I don't think he's the biggest or one of the biggest, but he has a significant impact in this league.
I mean, he won a Golden Boot award. He won a FIFA, I don't know how you pronounce that, Puskas award, Europa League.
I'm just saying, if you look at all the players in the Premier League right now,
very good.
Is he a player that you would have been like, is he the David Beckham of his time? Like if we got Harry Kane, would that have been a bigger signing for us?
I don't know. I guess I think we're kind of splitting hairs here on necessarily what bigger is necessarily. Did you see his first goal the other day though? Off the set piece.
I mean
that thing he freaking curled that in.
I'd put it on our screen if it weren't for the fact that
replay.
We get copyrighted every time we do that. So.
Oh man, yeah, no, he spun that thing in. That was wonderful watching that replay back. And so the impact he's going to make on LAFC specifically is probably going to be insurmountable. I realize they drew with Dallas in that match, and obviously FC Dallas is not good this year, so probably not a good look for LAFC. But it's also interesting to me because I feel like we're building this dynamic in the MLS of we have like our super teams now. We have our Miamis, we have LA who just made that huge signing with Son Heung-min. So we have these teams kind of emerging from the MLS that are like separating themselves from everybody else a little bit. But no, man, I think Son Heung-min is a massive signing for the MLS.
I don't disagree with you. I was just saying that if you're looking at name recognition, did he have the same name recognition as a Beckham, as a Ibrahimovic, right? Does he have a Thierry Henry?
Maybe not to the same level. Maybe not to the same level. Yeah, I agree with that.
I think it's a huge.
I'm saying, yeah,
it's huge.
Still an all-star. Still, an all-world kind of player. I mean, that's why you've seen the reception though. Like decade in the league. I mean, winning the Golden Boot obviously is no joke. I mean, that you are the guy in that situation. So, I mean, that's no different than someone who won the MVP only once. We've seen that before, but they're still considered legends of the game. So I still think, yeah, I mean, the interesting thing, though, is the money obviously continues to go up. So David Beckham was the trailblazer, but ever since then, much like all the other leagues, that number value continues to go up. So when you see these bigger signings come over, my guess is, and again, it probably comes down to the franchises that can actually afford them, but you're going to see that number continue to increase. So who knows if that means bigger signings on down the line. It could absolutely mean that for Major League Soccer. But it's clear that Son Heung-min can still produce.
Absolutely. When we come back here, Nate and I will dive into our top 5 U.S. men's national team moments of all time. That and much more coming up after this.
Experience the thrill of the game like never before with NSN's Game Rewind. Dive into full match commentaries enhanced with cutting-edge dynamic graphics, letting you relive the highs and lows of your favorite matches in astonishing detail. Whether it's a championship win or a legendary play, NSN Game Rewind bridges the past and future with a broadcast experience designed to captivate. Call 586-304-4405 and start watching today.
Welcome back here into Inside the Game, number 145. Jonathan Turner alongside Nate Wangler, our producer Nathan Turner. It's Tuesday, and we are continuing our series on U.S. soccer here this week. Yesterday, we talked about the all-time great moments in the U.S. women's national team. Those are all on our website right now. If you go to the nationalsoccernetwork.com, check out all those, obviously, on all of our social media as well. You can also go back and watch the show if you like on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or Roku TV. That's right, we are live right now on Roku TV as well. We're going to dive here in a moment into the U.S. men's national team top 5 moments in history. We'll continue this series tomorrow, though, with the ultimate starting lineup, the all-time greatest U.S. women's national team starting 11. Who would you have on your field? If you could pick any player from the past, who would it be? Nathan and I will discuss our starting 11 tomorrow for the women's side. I'll also be joined not in studio, but virtually with Paul Kramer, the head coach of the Forest Hills Central soccer side, currently ranked number 2, I believe, in Division II. And we'll have him here on the show tomorrow during our segment. So exciting times nonetheless. Nathan, we look at these moments, and for some of them we weren't alive. And obviously others we were. Some we might have been alive, but we don't remember because we might have been in diapers. That's definitely possible, at least for you, at least for a couple of them. With that being said, what was our criteria? What was the criteria that we used to determine what we thought would be the top 5 moments of all time? At least your criteria.
Biggest wins. Hey, that's the way I was looking at it. The biggest wins. So whether that be in the World Cup, whether that be in qualifying for the World Cup for the first time, and was it over 4 decades or something, whether it be the massive upsets that the U.S. men's national team has accomplished in the past, something that I feel like if we want to talk about future success, the only way to figure out how to go forward is to look back. And I realize you don't want to obsess over the past because the past is the past, and you always have to evolve, especially if you want to keep up with the rest of the world. And I think that's where we are right now as a nation when it comes to this game of soccer. So my biggest criteria on this one was biggest wins in U.S. men's national team history.
There you go. I would definitely also say the same thing. I also looked at, things that maybe changed the course of soccer, right? We could look back and say, even though the men's team did not make it to Russia in 2018, that was a change in our soccer culture in this country. They didn't go. So there are moments that are significant that maybe, like you yesterday even alluded to, there wasn't a win there. The win for women was getting equal pay, right? So that was a win. Now, had nothing to do at all with what happened on a field. Now, granted, it does. But I mean,
right.
Because we could argue that, hey, had the women had not had success, would that be something that they would be able to go and get? I think the leverage they have is how good they are. Right. You can come to the bargaining table if you're really good. If you're not good, how do you come to the bargaining table? And I think that's what's happening right now in the WNBA too, right? Because the WNBA for the longest time, I wouldn't say it was like a thing that sorry, someone just knocked on our door, I think. But I would say it wasn't for like the longest time. It was one of those things where what was I going to say? Where like the WNBA specifically, there was a lot of really good players, but I don't know if the league as a whole was going to be successful, right? And so now with Caitlin Clark and a lot of these younger, really talented players, you're seeing this really good success. And so I think now they have this leverage, and so they're going to go out and try and get that equal pay, which is great. We're going to dive here in a moment into this in the coming moments, into the U.S. men's national team. We're going to dive into a number of really cool things here with this. We'll dive first here into my version of what the best teams are in history, starting here with 2021 Gold Cup final, Mexico, right? This is a big one. With a young squad, the U.S. beat Mexico 1-0 in extra time at Allegiant Stadium. Miles Robinson, 117th minute header, sealed the win and signaled the rise of a new generation. That was back in 2021. In 2010, Landon Donovan's last-minute goal versus Algeria. In stoppage time, Donovan scored one of the most dramatic goals in U.S. history to send the U.S. through. Ian Darke's Go Go USA call became legendary. In 2002 World Cup quarterfinal run in South Korea, led by Donovan McBride and Reina, the U.S. shocked Portugal and defeated Mexico 2-0 before falling narrowly to Germany in the quarters, the deepest run since 1930. 1994. As the host nation, the U.S. advanced to the knockout stage for the first time in the modern era, drawing massive crowds. The July 4th match versus Brazil at Stanford Stadium remains iconic. And then finally, at number 1, obviously I was not born for this at all. The other ones I was. 1950 World Cup, the miracle on grass. The U.S. stunned England 1-0, and Belo Horizonte, Joe Gatchen scored the famous goal, still considered one of the biggest upsets in World Cup history. Those are my top 5 moments in the history of the U.S. men's national team. Thoughts before we dive into yours, David?
Maybe one of my other criterias for this list could also be argued be upsets. The U.S. men's national team winning games that they had no business winning. Because when you look back at the history of the team, there are a few of those, and that's why I agree with your list. I think it's a good list. I do think you are missing one game in this list, though, and I'll cover that on my top 5. But I definitely think the 1950 win versus England, it's funny because we have this thing called recency bias in sports. You and I know about it all too well. Like the most recent thing, the most shiny thing, the most new thing is what everybody wants to talk about. And if it's far enough ago, everybody just passes it off as, well, yeah, it's irrelevant. It did whatever. It happened so long ago. It happened over 70 years ago. Therefore, it doesn't matter. No, it does matter. It's a part of the history. It's a part of the whole picture. And so that's why when we talk about that 1950s game, I wasn't alive for it. I was nearly half a century not born yet. But that game in and of itself being one of the greatest upsets in World Cup history, we were on that side of it. And there's another one of the greatest upsets, arguably one of the greatest upsets in international soccer history that's squarely in my top 5 list when we get the opportunity to show it here. So I think upsets definitely deserve a spot on it. Again, just wins, what I was talking about. But the other part of this is, and I know we ranked our top 5 players ever, there's a reason why Landon Donovan is either number 1A or 1B. I don't think there is a way you can not put him at least in the top 2. And I know I said Pulisic will probably end up being the most talented player to ever play for the U.S. men's national team. But as of right now, there's a reason why Landon Donovan is in that number 1 spot. And it's because of a lot of the games that you mentioned. A lot of them on that list he is a part of. He's squarely a part of it.
Yeah, we'll put your graphic up now, Nathan, and take a look at it. Here are your top 5, and I'll let you lead them off.
Yeah, so obviously in number 5 in 1989, I'm so sorry to the U.S. men's national team fans for not knowing how to pronounce this. Maybe you can help me out with this, JT. Paul Caligari, I think. I don't know. Caligari, thank you very much. Scores, and again, this was before I was alive, in 1989. Scores what many considered was the biggest goal in the history of American soccer. Let's just put it that way. When you're away from the World Cup for that long, and you're able to beat a streak of, over 40 years, first World Cup in 40 years that year to get into the World Cup, beat Trinidad and Tobago 1-0 to get in, that was kind of the restart of American soccer. We were good in the 30s, in the 50s. Obviously, we did what we did against England, but after that, it was like a cliff. There wasn't really much after that. So to get the U.S. back in the world picture, that has to be on the top 5 for me. 2002 World Cup versus Mexico. Brian McBride, Landon Donovan give the U.S. a 2-0, 2-0 victory over rival Mexico to advance to the quarterfinals. That is what's known by a lot of people as the greatest U.S. men's national team of all time. They went the deepest into the World Cup. They nearly got themselves to a semifinal. I know we could talk about the handball versus Germany. But by the way, they wouldn't have won the game if we would have scored on that penalty. It would have, I believe, tied us at 1. So to assume that we just would have gone on to win that game is probably wrong. But that is known as the greatest team of all time. And this is why I said when we were ranking our top 5 players, JT, when I said that the likes of Landon Donovan When I say he has his signature wins, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Yes, he hasn't won a World Cup, but he's won some of the biggest games in U.S. men's national team history. He's been a part of those games. So if there's anybody who you should be open to maybe taking a little criticism from, or just has the right in general to criticize, it would be Landon Donovan. 1998 Gold Cup semifinal versus Brazil. Casey Keller morphs into a brick wall, and the U.S. stuns soccer superpower Brazil 1-0. So we've beaten Brazil. We beat Mexico to get to that semifinals. That was in 98. That was just crazy. I mean, Brazil, they lead the world in World Cups. I think they have 5 of them. I mean, internationally speaking, if we want to rank our international teams historically, Brazil's number 1 on that list. So when you're able to beat Brazil, that has to go down as a top 5 moment ever. This is the one that I was a little shocked not to see on your top 5 list, because this is an upset that is so spoken about so little, but in my mind, it's one of the single greatest wins it has to go down to in U.S. men's soccer history. The 2009 Confederations Cup final, or semifinal that is, versus Spain, ended what was Spain's 35-game unbeaten streak. 35 matches they didn't lose in a row. And then they face off against that gritty U.S. men's national team. Again, those early 2000s teams, just the identity of those squads is something that we all yearn for as U.S. men's national team supporters now. 1-2-0 via goals, Josie Altidore, Clint Dempsey. Again, we're talking about signature wins. Landon Donovan, Clint Dempsey, they both have them. And beating Spain in that situation, they had no business even being in that game. And they got it done. They blanked them 2-0 in that one to beat them in the semifinal. They were up on Brazil, or was it Brazil or Argentina? I don't know. They were up in the final too and nearly pulled off that upset. So we were really close to them being Confederations Cup champions in 2009, again, when they had no business being there. And then, of course, number 1, the miracle on grass. How can you not have that one in there? The 1950 World Cup versus England. Again, people will say it happened so long ago. Why are we talking about that far in the past? But the reality is, again, we had no business winning that game at all. And you know what brings me a level of guilty pleasure, Jonathan Turner? England has never beaten us in the World Cup, ever. Period. Once. Now, I know we're going to play them here in 2026, but England's never beaten us in the World Cup. Portugal's never beaten us in the World Cup. I could have talked about the draw versus Portugal and getting out of that group, the group of death once upon a time. That probably could have cracked the top 5 or top 10, but never beaten us. Never beaten us. The same people that troll us for calling it soccer because it's called football, although those people, they were the ones that first coined the term soccer and then pass that on to us. We start calling it soccer, and then they're like, no, you idiots, it's football. I don't know. I don't get it. But they've never beaten us in the World Cup. That's my top 5 list. Couple of monster upsets in there. And again, it is possible to do this, but I don't know if that style of play that we used in the early 2000s will ever come back. I just think we're at a point now to where we're too proud to play the way that those teams played and just bunker and counter, which is sad. I think we're just trying to go toe for toe with the best. I don't know if I love that strategy, but we know what kind of country we are and what kind of identity we should have. They had it back then. So they got their signature win. So that's my look at my top 5.
It's a great top 5, and it'll lead into our question of the day here a little bit later in the show. But we will continue our U.S. soccer conversation here tomorrow with, again, the top 11 players in the history of U.S. soccer on the women's side, and where they will. They're not the best 11, the starting 11, right? Who would you pick in the history of the U.S. women's national team to be on your team? If you were to pick a team in the history of that program, who would it be? We'll continue that obviously tomorrow. But coming up next year, is Chicago a top 5 soccer market in the U.S.? We'll talk about that and more on the other side of the break. You're watching episode 145 of Inside the Game.
Are you ready to create unforgettable moments for your audience? NSN offers professional live streaming and full broadcast services tailored to your needs. From high-quality production to exceptional coverage, we ensure your game or event becomes a spectacle to remember. Book your next game with us today. Call 586-304-4405 to schedule your broadcast and let NSN bring the action to life like never before.
Welcome back here into Inside the Game, number 145. Jonathan Turner alongside Nate Wengler, our producer Nathan Turner. We continue our conversation here today about, obviously, U.S. soccer. We just wrapped that segment up here a moment ago, talking about the best moments of all time. We now talk about Chicago and Chicago's new stadium coming here in 2028. All right, and here's a look at that new stadium. Again, Chicago Fire will call the new home here coming up in the spring of 2028. And, you know, Nathan, first and foremost, the reason we're even having this conversation is Taylor Twellman decided to make a comment. I don't have that comment on our screen, but what we're going to do first here is this soccer-specific stadium is going to be on a 62-acre mixed-use development in the South Loop along the Chicago River, just south of Roosevelt Road. They're expected to cost $650 million. Now, we have talked about a number of stadiums, by the way, being built here or upgraded over the last few weeks on our platform. And this was announced back earlier this year. So this isn't like a new thing that we're talking about here. As far as like, you know, they said like wasn't released yesterday. But again, it's set to open in 2028. But the question becomes which are or who is the top market in the United States when it comes to Major League Soccer or the professional environment. And obviously, when you start talking about big markets, right, you usually talk about places that have a high population, densely populated areas, right? New York, L.A., Chicago, right? These are places that have tens of millions of people that live in them. And so on your screen, we're going to talk about those top 5 markets right now. And here they are, right? So New York is number 1, right? They're top 5 MLS market in the U.S., New York City FC and the Red Bulls, all right? They have the top viewership. And again, they have the home to 2 MLS clubs, but the largest TV market. Well, why? Because they have the most people.
Well, it's New York. Yeah. Right.
So they're the most people. We go to number 2, Los Angeles, right? Second largest TV market, second highest for soccer viewership. And they host, again, 2 teams, LA Galaxy and LAFC. And right there below them, third, market size. They're 4th in soccer and viewership and the MLS presence with Chicago Fire. So again, you look at that and say, okay, well, they're already in the top 5. Washington, D.C. is 4th. It's 8th in the media market, but 3rd in soccer viewership. So they actually have less people than Chicago, New York, and L.A., but they're 3rd, and they're actually above Chicago in viewership. They obviously have D.C. United. And there in 5th is San Francisco, which is comprised of Oakland and San Jose. Both those markets, again, I think they're the 10th largest TV market. They're 5th in soccer viewership in the country, and it made a statement about, you know, Chicago being a top 5 market. Well, they're already a top 5 market. Now, I think the statement should have been, this will solidify them as a top 5 market team. Because right now in viewership, they have it. Right now in size, they have it. They have an MLS team. And obviously with there's the women's side as well in the NWSL. You know, and so they have an MLS Next side. I don't know why we're even having the conversation about whether or not they're a top 5 team. I feel like, you know, statistically and factually, that's what they already are. And so why are we having this conversation right now? You know, what is... I'm not saying that Taylor Twellman is wrong. Taylor Twellman from Chicago. His dad played for the Chicago Strikers, I believe, back in the day. And so he's used to this area. I think the thing that we've been talking about when it comes to Chicago, for the longest time, they were playing all of their games. They used to play them at Soldier Field. And now they're playing them at another facility. I think they're playing them out at a college facility just in the outskirts of Chicago. But now they're going to have their own field, you know, near you know, Lake Michigan and along the Riverwalk. This is really cool. I think it's great, but I don't know why we're saying that they're a top 5 market team, or there's a question about them being a top 5 market team. I'm curious your thoughts on this.
Well, it's so the TV and the population and everything else like that. Yeah, I mean, in terms of that side of the conversation, yes, but when it comes to successful franchises, what's the first step that you have to take in order to build a successful franchise? You have to create a destination. You have to create a place that players want to come play. They want to be a part of it. They want to be in that environment, in that spot, surrounded by other players. I mean, we think about this from the perspective of even the Detroit Lions. You know, for the longest time, like generations and generations, that was not a destination people wanted to go play. That was a death sentence if you landed there as a quarterback, if you landed there as a coach, anything else along those lines. He says market, but I think he should have specified a little bit more. We know how things go on social media, right? You got to keep it within the sweet spot. Anything within 30 seconds, you're probably going to do a lot better on. So if I were to ask him to break this down and be a little bit more detailed, what do you mean by top 5 markets? Casting aside viewership and all of these other things when it comes to how densely populated and how diverse Chicago is, which obviously I think would lead to more support for the soccer team. That's why we see it happening in New York, obviously, as much as it is, because you have the most densely populated and diverse population in any city in the United States. So you're going to see those good ratings. I think Chicago is much in the same as New York is. But the Fire should be a top MLS franchise on the field. Maybe that's what he was trying to get at here. But, it's JT, it's been decades of blunders that have kept a lot of Chicagoans just not all that interested in what exactly they have going on. Constant season failures. Players that they get are not drawing fans. They're not producing on the field. They're not winning big games. The third stadium in its brief MLS history, I don't know if a new stadium is necessarily going to change all that, but it should at least get the organization moving in the right direction. You would think if they're going to put it in a more prime location, but this is the debate, this is the battle that we're having, is the ownership group, the people who run the table, run things at the Chicago Fire, are they capable of building a product that can match the hype of what that stadium is going to have? Like, it's great having those blueprints, and you're right. I mean, they are in terms of market size. They're absolutely in the top 5. But is this a franchise that can turn around decades of blunder after blunder and actually create a product that can match the hype of the new stadium that they're building? That's the question, because you're creating the physical destination, but I'm not sure anybody has any hope in the world that as an organization, as a franchise, that the Chicago Fire are actually capable of building a winner. I think that's what this all comes down to. And so in terms of market size, yes, you're right. They are squarely in the top 5. Absolutely. I mean, it's Chicago, man. I mean, they're going to have a team in whatever professional league it is. We just saw Major League Volleyball just rename their league to Major League Volleyball, merging with 2 different leagues. They're going to have a Chicago team. There's no doubt about it. If there's any pro league, there's going to be a Chicago team with how densely populated that place is. But they should have a top major league franchise to match this new building. I think that's the area that he's trying to get into.
No, I get it. I think that when I watched the clip quite a bit just to make sure I was understanding what he was saying. And Chicago Fire do play at Soldier Field right now, by the way. I know that there was a part where I think that they played somewhere else, but I don't disagree. With the sentiment that what they do on the field is a big deal. But just because you're building a stadium doesn't mean the product's going to get any better. I mean, look at what the Lions look like from 1999 on. I mean, they were not great. And building a brand new stadium, getting them out of the Silverdome. Didn't
So I'm
really
saying
help them for the longest time.
I don't know if that's
Comerica
going to
Park,
change
right?
anything.
Huh?
Yeah.
I
said that's what I said. That's what I was saying. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Tiger Stadium was outdated, and it was time to move. The Tigers did, and they were terrible. They moved there, I think, in 99, 2000, somewhere in there. At the same time, Ford Field, basically the same time. And so, I think again the on-field product is different than that of what the market is. Chicago will always be a top 5 market. And it has nothing to do with the team and everything to do with the amount of people that live in that city. Okay? I mean, if statistically, you look at the sports all across this country, if you just thought like, hey, 10% of your population loves the game of soccer, well, you're going to get a couple 100,000 fans to watch your games, which should be greater than that of, I don't know, other areas of the country where they're, like think about Houston. The Dynamo, right? FC Dallas, right? I mean, they're not even the top. I don't know what the tops are, but, the population in which you're going to pull from is significantly higher. And to be fair, I'm actually surprised that Houston and FC Dallas don't have higher viewership than because of the Hispanic population. Because soccer, you're so close to the border that you would think that the people watching there would be even higher. The viewership would be higher. And so they should be in the top 5. You think of viewership on the list. And so I don't think that, that Taylor Twellman is like off his rocker. I think that they're already there. I think that at the end of the day, the goal is for them to improve their environment so that more better quality players come. Coaches want to be there. You have training that's available, and then the product gets better, and then that brings championships, right? And that's what the ultimate goal. So I think that again, I think they're already a top 5 market team. I think this helps improve that market. It helps it improve them so that they have a better opportunity to even maybe go higher. It's time for question of the day, Nathan, and a question of the day here today. I thought really long and hard about this one, and it's interesting. When we think about what we talked about these last 2 days, it begs the question, where are we at in regards to these moments, right? And we're going to ask the question here today about specifically which is your favorite team. But before we dive into that, what is this segment brought to you by? Our question today is brought to you by Salt Athletic, right? And you save 15% off by using the promo code NSN15. Visit saltathletic.com or scan the QR code on your screen, and that will absolutely get you an opportunity to save 15% off of your products that they offer there at Salt Athletic. So, which is your favorite U.S. men's national team moment of all time? That is the question of the day. You've got 4 choices. That's right. 4 choices is what you have. Here they are. Option 1, 1950 World Cup versus England, 1-0 victory. Option 2, 2002 World Cup round of 16 versus Mexico. 2009's Confederations Cup versus Spain, or 2010 World Cup versus Algeria. Donovan in the 90th +1. Those are your options. You can vote for them on our website at nationalsoccernetwork.com. You can vote for it on our YouTube channel under posts. You can also vote for it on Twitter. So either one, you can vote at any one of those locations. And we'll read off what you think the best moment of all time is. And hey, if you don't like any of those and want to put one in the comment, you can do that as well.
A lot of good choices there. Beating Mexico. I mean, it's one thing to just beat them in the Gold Cup or in the Nations League or whatever it is, but to beat them in the World Cup to get to the quarterfinal is, that has to be a high unlike any other. And I'm not going to put it amongst some of the greatest soccer rivalries in the world. I feel like we're getting a little too far over our skis if we're going to get that far into the conversation, but that must have been a great feeling one. But I think the Confederations Cup one too is you can't get away from that. I mean, to beat Spain after 35 straight matches that they've won, that's ridiculous. So a lot of good selections on there. I'm going to go with C, man, at least for me. That's me personally.
Yeah, I still can't go off, change where I'm at. It's 1950, right? It's the greatest victory in the history of the men's national team. Happened in the World Cup. You beat England, which, founder of soccer, right? The great, the father of soccer, right? I mean, it's got to be number one. It's got to be A. So that's where I'm at with all this. Yeah, I mean, what another great show, Nathan. 145 is in the books. We're excited that you had a chance to stop on by here today. What do you got to do? You got to subscribe. You got to like us. You got to share this with your friends and family. And you got to come back again tomorrow as we dive into the starting 11. Who would be your starting 11? Who are the best players ever to play the game, and where would they be on your starting 11? Who would be your goalkeeper? Who would be your midfielders, your defenders, your forwards? Think of all the players that have ever worn the jersey in the history of the U.S. women's national team. Who would you have on that field to go out there and win? Right? Think of that super all-star team. Who would it be? We'll talk about that tomorrow and so much more. But that's Nate Wangler. I'm Jonathan Turner, and our producer, Nathan Turner. I want to thank you for stopping by. Subscribe, like us, share this with your friends and family. Come back here tomorrow morning, same time, same place. We'll also be joined by Paul Kramer from Forest Hill Central tomorrow morning as well. From all of us here at Inside the Game, have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you same time, same place, right here tomorrow morning. From the biggest matches to the hottest takes, Jonathan Turner and Nathan Wenger bring you the stories, the analysis, and the edge you won't get anywhere else. Streaming live weekdays at 9 a.m. on YouTube, Roku TV, Facebook, Twitter, and all major platforms. No filters, no fluff, just real talk, real soccer. This is Inside the Game.